Okay, looks like we're streaming live on YouTube. So I will call the meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, and it is 8:33 a.m. or 9:33 a.m. Were any public comments
Live
submitted?
on YouTube.
Got it. Okay. No public comment received.
Okay, first thing on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Looking for a motion to approve today's agenda and the minutes from May. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the consent agenda and the minutes from May.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Aye.
it doesn't sound like we have any opposed. We'll move into discussion items. First up is the library. Amanda Wojcik will be in Salem later today to install this week. Any further update, Heather?
Yeah, you're right. So she'll be on site. Yeah, she was coming into town today. I think the install was starting tomorrow. I didn't get any times from her into Friday, potentially, maybe depending on how it goes. So I'd reached out. I asked Mr. James if he was available. I think you were available maybe one of the 2 days.
Yeah, I'm available tomorrow after about 9:30 or so.
Okay, well, I think it's up to you if you have the time and wanted to come down. I know we were interested in getting some photos. If you're busy, I can pull in some staff as well. And I know others, I think there was a few of us that were interested in just stopping by as well. So I need to try to get more defined times from her.
Okay,
And how would we get actually into the building? Is that through the kind of the door on the west side?
That's a very good question. Paula found it yesterday. It's kind of hidden. I think it would be the same access point. There's a gate right behind City Hall in Peace Plaza, and it's on kind of the east corner of City Hall, right behind the doors as you come out the back. There's kind of a hidden construction gate entrance. So that's how I've been going in and out. That's how we went in and out yesterday. I can verify with Aaron whether or not we have an alternate. And so I'll send that out with times. I hadn't reached back out to Amanda yet.
okay.
It's
We
basically
have
a
to check
break
in
in
with-
the fence.
Yeah,
Can I just say, I ended up going where the cars go in, but just before that, there's like a break in the blue fence where a person could walk through, and that's where you go in,
hard to
not
see.
where the cars go.
Don't you have to check in at the construction shack? Okay,
Yes.
It's
yeah,
right there.
Do we have to wear hard hats?
Yes.
they'll issue
Okay.
you safety gear. Yes.
I can bring my own, right? And a safety vest and all that, right?
Yeah, and they gave me glasses, and they gave us glasses and gloves. I'm not sure yesterday as well. So
Just in the spirit of cooperation, I was able to talk to Chrissy Birch at the convention center, who got a favorable hotel rate for Amanda at the Grand Hotel. So that worked out nicely.
that's cool.
All right. I would like to go to stop in as well while she's here. I know she's checking into the hotel later today. I think she has planned. I don't know if her crew is coming today or in the morning, but she did say for her installations, she prefers to stay completely focused, because I suggested that maybe we could introduce her to a couple of you, and she said not on this trip. And I'm sure she's paying her people possibly by the hour, so she wants to just get it done and get it right. We did have a meeting with Amanda, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. Rachel was involved with that call, and we talked a little bit about communications plans. So let's segue into that if that's okay, Heather.
Yeah, that sounds great. We had a meeting on the 27th that included Sarah, the librarian. It included Kate from the Library Foundation, Amanda and Chris and Rachel. You were on that call with her. We brought up that idea again of having an exhibition of sorts of additional works and more display, I guess, of the process behind our new artwork at the library. I think there was maybe, and I don't know if you've heard from her again, Rachel. It sounds like she might have to look at, given the location that we're looking at in that art corridor, which is that kind of hallway across from where the Friends Library was. It's pretty darn accessible to folks. So I know she was wanting, it sounded like, to have artwork that's well framed and would be protected in that manner. There's still a couple other questions about what our insurance might look like, or insurance needs would be to have her artwork on site as well. So anyway, we started that conversation on the 27th. I think everyone in that group was on board. We were just waiting to hear more from Amanda.
Yeah, I reached out to her by email just to set up a time to talk more about that exhibition. And knowing that she's busy with the end of school and the installation of the piece, I suggested that we connect next week after she's finished with all that. So that's where that is.
Great. I know Amanda did post on her own Instagram account a nice image of the work in studio, kind of just in the process of being arranged for making the connections between the pieces. It's pretty good. I love the colors. And I know most of you are not on Instagram, so sorry, I can't share. You can't share from Instagram to a platform outside of Instagram. What about talking just a little bit about communication strategy? You know, we had talked about doing a video of Amanda talking about her work. I still think that would be valuable. I think if we can capture some installation process shots, that would be useful, as well as, you know, getting the final piece shot nicely. We have reached out to the Oregon Quarterly at the University of Oregon. George Ivano, their publisher, said that they just ran a big story about a public art commission. So he'd have to look at this project and make a decision about when it might, you know, when it could run. But at least we've got a connection there. I think it might be interesting to try to get a story in Oregon Arts Watch. We'd have to, you know, get in that queue as well. And, you know, the Statesman does not, the paper is so modest now, they don't cover a lot. And Salem Reporter already wrote about this a little bit. I don't, you know, what else is there? KMUZ.
You had mentioned media.
Right, CC Media, you know, if they could do kind of a composite video, that would be helpful because they're free. I also think
Press
in terms
play.
of Press Play Salem is going to be in print this summer. So, you know, we probably should talk with Carly Wright about what her plans are. Either one of us could do that. Rachel, she is doing a weekly digest that's digital, that usually includes one image. But we may have some time for Press Play Salem because the library is not going to be open to the public. So it could be that we get her to do a feature for a fall issue. I don't know. I haven't spoken with Carly about whether she's going to maintain the format that she's used before, but it will be print in some fashion.
Yeah, so it seems like, so if we can get the installation of this new piece documented, and that might take a few of us, and we can compile that. And then it seemed like maybe a later date closer to when the library reopens, based on if we have that other exhibition as well. Maybe work with Amanda on what timing would work for her in terms of an interview and reach out to these other folks. So.
She did say she has another commission that she has to wrap up by the end of the summer. That's the sooner we could get this plotted out, I think the better. Who should reach out to CC Media?
I can do that unless you,
Okay.
somebody else. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, great. Because Wendy, she's very enthusiastic. It's just a matter of scheduling.
Sure. Okay.
Is anyone from the city taking video of any kind while she's doing the installation?
So I didn't plan that yet. It's easy, really easy to do. We have the new staff person I hired. He does video. He has a video background. And then we've got another gal, Kathy, from communications, who I think has expressed interest in all things library and artwork related as well. So we've got a couple folks, and I can check. I wasn't sure who all. I didn't want to have too many people on site to cause confusion for Amanda, but I can ask those two to come on as well. But I've taken video. It's not the best quality, just video from my cell phone as well that we've posted of our drinking water system and things. So if need be, I can try to capture some myself too. So we'll have plenty.
Does Amanda know that there may be other people coming? Okay.
Yeah, I think we brought it up during the.
Okay. Because that can be distracting.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
Okay, it sounds like we're in, things are in good shape for this week. Let's go to the remaining 80 plus works of art that will come back to the library. And what's the latest there? What happened with the birds?
Should we talk about the birds issue? Heather, do you want me to share pictures and?
Sure, if you're willing to, yeah, we can dive right into, we had the larger artworks first. Yeah, if you're willing to do that.
So Heather and I were there with Erin yesterday and got in to see the birds. I wish I would have taken a picture of the whole situation, but yes, Heather and Erin were on top of this pile of boxes where the birds were laid out. And anyway, after 3 hours, we kind of figured out, like taking off bits of wrapper, figured out which piece was which, and Heather labeled those. And then the three of us poring over every photo we had to figure out how they go back together. Anyway, we did it, and we came up with measurements that were exact enough that the anchors will, be straight on the pieces. There are some issues though, and I'll show you some pictures. We kind of need to decide, I think, as a group, what we want to say going forward. The place where we were told the piece could go might have worked okay. It feels like it's a little shoved in a corner, and it's not the most ideal place in that space for the work of art at all, which it was hard to know that until actually seeing it. Even though all of that, it still could have gone into that place, except that once we got in there, the original birds were on two mostly parallel lines. They need to be on parallel lines now because of the way that they will be installed. And originally, they were only 24 inches apart. So two pieces on this line, one piece on this line, 24 inches apart. The new building, the honeycomb, the ribs that come down from that honeycomb ceiling, those are 36 inches apart. And so that is the least amount of space that we could have between them for the seismic requirements. So we're going from 24 inches to 36 inches. Once we got into that space, and Erin and some of the guys were looking at it, we realized because of the way that the fire sprinklers and such, everything was in there. And because the piece, the way that, you know, it can only be a certain distance from the windows because it has to swing at a 45-degree angle, be able to swing without hitting the windows. Because of all that, in the space that we were allotted, the only way for the work, and because of the lighting, the only way for the work to be in that space, they would have to be 72 inches apart. So suddenly we've gone from 24 inches apart in the original installation to 72 inches apart, which Heather and I both agreed that suddenly it doesn't look like Hardy's birds anymore, and it is very different from the original installation. And I think it would look like 3 small flocks of birds at that point, and not a grouping of birds. I personally feel that we can't do that. I'd rather not hang it than hang it that way in that space, honestly. If you would like me to, I can show you some pictures. We as a group talked about moving it over in the space. The issue, so wherever it is in this space, it's going to be seen from the kids area, whether it's in that corner or we move it over. Moving it over from that space would allow us to go back to the 36-inch spacing, but it puts it more prominently into view of the kids area, which is what they're trying to avoid. I'm trying to keep my personal frustration with this out of this conversation, but I find it a little frustrating that we're trying to put it in a place where it doesn't look good. It's not going to look good. It's not going to be spaced right, just so it's 10 feet over from the main view of the kids area. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. So if you don't mind, I will share my screen and show you a few pictures. Let's see. So hold on just a second. I wrote down which ones to show you here. Here we go. Okay, so can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this right here is the, okay, this window, that is the kids area on the second floor there, or the upper floor. This is the corner right here where we have been told to install the birds. They can't go on this rib because that's too close to the windows. So they have to go on this rib right here. But then they can't go on the rib next to it because that's where the light fixtures are. There's one more rib on the other side that you can't see. So it would be straddling those light fixtures, and each rib, like I said, is 36 inches apart. So they would be installed 72 inches apart there, kind of in the middle of the space. It already feels in that space that it's pretty crammed in the corner. These lights come down about 19 inches. The bar that holds the birds will come down about 4 inches below that. So the bird sculpture starts here, it goes down to about here. So pretty much it's framed in this window looking out from the kids area. It's gonna be showing in the kids area, even if it's here. We have asked, or I have asked, Heather seems to agree that this would be a better placing of it. We can use these 2 ribs here, which are 36 inches apart. It would start right here, just on the other side of that water line. One anchor, well, an anchor here for one of the larger pieces. Anchor here for the other large piece, and then another anchor here for the smaller piece, and the birds would be facing west or into this window here. So that is kind of what we're thinking. I have another couple pictures here. Let's see, what's this one? Oh, that's just another one of those. Let's see.
Is that looking up into the children's area?
That is looking up into the children's area. So this is the proposed area we're thinking of here.
Okay.
And this was the older area here. So it's really packed right against that window. Let me show you, I can show you from up in the kids area. Let's see, hold on. So this is inside the kids area. And these are those windows, and then they look out to these windows beyond, facing east, and then there's these side windows here. So if we were to put it, well, in the original place, it would be back over in this corner. Otherwise, it would be kind of centered in these two pillars, right in this space here. Let's see, hold on.
Eileen, did he say anything about those modular doors in that photo there that you just shared?
Modular doors? I don't understand.
What I don't know the right term. These doors in the middle.
Accordion
These
door.
walls?
Yeah,
Oh.
like
Mhm.
maybe that's
Oh,
might be going to be used for a meeting room or something, or have that capability. That might, I'm wondering if that might be part of the reasoning to put it back there, I guess.
I just feel like in general, if we're deciding to put this piece over here in this corner just so kids don't see it, I feel like we've got some bigger issues here.
I'm actually a little confused about the mandate, because I think that when they originally talked about not having it, the issue had to do with being underneath it. So because it used to hang, by the stairs, and you would come up into the main floor of the library and it was hanging, or was it up to the second floor? Anyhow, it was in the stair area.
Right.
And then the architects had suggested, well, go back to that picture for a second. The one before that. Right here. So the architects originally wanted to hang it in that stairwell. And the children's librarian said, no, we don't want it there because it'll scare the children going up to. So when you get to that landing and make that turn, that's a double height area. And I think that's where they originally suggested placing it. And so I guess I don't know if other people have a different recollection of the conversation that between Laura from Hacker and Sarah at the library. But my recollection is that the reasoning there was that the kids wouldn't want to be walking under this thing, the sculpture, and so move it to an area where it wasn't like the traffic area for children going up to the children's area, which this isn't. And then, but I never got the impression that it was supposed to be out of view of children. I mean, that
Okay.
was my remembering of it, but recollection. Maybe others who were also at that meeting would recall. Chris, I think you were
So
there.
does anyone know why this part here was chosen rather than this?
I don't
No,
know. I mean,
No.
I think the idea was this split, generally speaking, this was the area. When I saw the drawings from the engineer and they had it wedged kind of like right in that corner there, I don't think that they were told to wedge it in that corner. I mean, I think that was just kind of on the drawings that Hacker gave. It was like this is where it's going in this
Area.
area. But
Well,
there
so
was
maybe
no,
it's not an issue.
I kind of think it isn't. But again, given the feedback that we've received from the library about other artworks, I think that it would be worth just saying this is where we plan to install it in this corner, and
Yeah.
just
Paula, you said that it hung pretty far down.
Well,
How
so these are 19 inches these light fixtures. And then the top of the sculpture starts about 4
Yeah.
inches under that. The rods are 24 inches, so 5 inches below the light surface. And then it'll come down probably to about here.
It's 10 feet.
Yeah.
So the longest panel would be 10 feet long. So that would put it about halfway on that white wall.
Some of the birds they're in sight line to the windows, and then others aren't.
Yeah,
You were
the top of the sculptures are going to be, it's like the birds are going to be flying toward these windows here. And then, but they'll also, from these windows, you'll be looking down on the rest. They'll come down about this far, I think.
I mean, if anything, it feels like it would be really neat to look out the window and see birds and be kind of like part of this flock of birds and have sort of a bird's eye view of the birds.
I would agree. And then because it's different from walking under it and having kind of like an ominous, scary situation.
I think we should also perhaps talk about the whole idea of children being afraid of the birds. We don't know how many children said what or what parents said what. And so before we give up on just going ahead and doing what Paula is suggesting, I think that we need to just clarify that, because if we're only talking about 5, 6 kids maybe who have said something, then it's a non-issue. Like I was telling Paula and Rachel the other day, a friend of mine was the research librarian for a couple of decades in the library. And you know where the research desk was. She said there was never one complaint that came to the research desk when she was there.
That doesn't surprise me.
It might be a moot point as well. I mean, if Rachel's right, it might just be that they just didn't think about that one space would be better. And also, I don't think that anybody knew until Heather and I were talking with Erin yesterday that they were going to have to be spaced 72 inches apart in that corner.
Sorry, before I lose my thought, I had another comment though about the orientation. They're facing the windows. Could they face the other way? Could they be hung and still have the integrity of the piece? Because it seems like they're flying toward the windows versus the majority of the space. It seems like, for me, if no one told me, I'd hang it going the other way, because it seemed like the negative space flying toward windows, birds flying toward windows is, to me, not that ideal. So anyway, if there's just in conversation here, just a thought, like, could they be orientated to be going, I guess, the opposite direction?
North, I think is what you're saying, Michael. And
yeah,
I think
going away from the windows, because it just
Yeah.
seems like it would be more freeing to think of flying toward the more open space and not walls and windows.
Would that work, Paula? Orienting to the north?
Paula, you're muted.
Thank you. I couldn't figure out how to unmute while I was sharing. So having them face toward the library. Yes. And, you know, we hadn't really considered that, because when we were still talking about this spot, facing them the other direction wasn't an option because there's not enough room. And so we had said they would face west, but you're right. If we're moving them into this space,
they would go east, not north-south, is what I was asking. So
right. So rather than along these lines, we still sort of run into an issue though, because the only place there's enough room is right here and here, going that direction.
And that's in center to the light. On a grid, there's symmetry to the lights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm just not sure if we can hang on this rib because of its proximity to this window. I mean, I know we can go right here and here. And we can't hang on the same rib as the light fixture. So then,
Okay.
you know, the north-south ones that are left are this one and this one. And this may be, I don't know if the seismic thing is any window or just an outdoor window. But this might be too close to this wall. I don't know.
But you said that they have to account for swinging out on a 90-degree angle and to avoid any obstacle.
A 45-degree
A
angle. They have to
45.
be able to swing
So it seems like
45 degrees.
those are clearly plenty of distance.
It seems like it.
I have a question. Is it possible to Photoshop the birds into this image so that we could look at what it's going to look like in several configurations? Like, is that something technically, Michael, that you would know how to do?
I mean, you'd have to have a lot of good photo reference of them hanging
Yeah.
and from the original installation, I would imagine, because now that we don't have the opportunity, they're in pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do some sort of sketch that doesn't try to replicate, you know, the finish of the artwork, just more in the geometry of it. You could do something pretty simple. I'm sure
Yeah.
our friends over at CB2 or even Hacker, I don't know, it's Hacker's projects. That's my bad to even mention someone else. Anyone who's good at doing
Yes, maybe Hacker could just do even a line drawing.
just
would
a
help-
line
yeah.
drawing
would
that
help
shows the
me.
dimension, the footprint, and to make sure that there's, you know, basically they can look at the site or the blueprints to kind of imagine the distances, and they could speculate on that it's basically meeting the seismic.
They should be able to do it in a model.
CADs.
And if you give them the dimensions of the sculpture, they can just make like a little fake birds sculpture
right.
with those dimensions and then orient it in the space.
Right.
So the only thing I would share on that front is I know, and we could have conversations about it. Aaron, there was another meeting, I think it's right now, 10 this morning, I think is what he said, with library staff. I know Kate from the foundation. I don't know for sure if Hacker was going to be there. Anyway, he was going to bring up this option to that group of moving the birds to that group this morning. I know from his perspective and from Howard Wright, we still have time before move-in, but they were really wanting to get, and again, this is just from their perspective, they were really wanting to get those anchors drilled up into the ceiling now because folks had already started to do the cleaning and stuff. They were out there with vacuums and whatnot at the other end of this corridor yesterday. It's going to make a mess. They're wanting to start moving books in soon and furnishings and stuff. So they were hoping to get those anchors drilled in pretty quickly. So just sharing that.
Paula, the configuration, there's two parts of the birds on one rib and then one part on the second. Which one holds the two parts?
Which one holds here? I'm going to stop this share.
Well,
I'm
actually,
gonna
I was thinking that we need that.
Hold on. I'm getting another image for you here. I don't know if this is helpful. Just a sec. This was just the drawing after 3 hours that we came up with yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So one rib has the largest piece here.
Mhm.
And then the other rib has the middle-sized piece here and the smaller piece here. And the birds are flying. This is the front of the flock, and that's the very end of it there.
Okay, so this is when they're flying towards the children's window.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we angle that the way that Michael was suggesting, which I totally agree that would be optimum. that would mean that the two that were the medium and the little one would be closest to the children's window at that point.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so the swing that you're talking about the biggest piece would be on the outside of that.
Correct. This is the longest piece. Yeah, you're right.
So it shouldn't be as big an issue because the swing is pretty much exactly where you were thinking was the most, the one that you had to consider the most.
Yeah, that would be on the outside. You're right. Mhm.
So that actually is a good point. Because the two smaller ones should clear the children's window.
Yeah.
Okay, so it might be okay to do that.
Okay, while I'm thinking of it, Rachel, thanks for that's like quite a bit of time you put toward this. I really appreciate it.
Paula.
Paula, sorry, Rachel. Paula, it seems like thanks for getting in all that nitty gritty because it was needed for sure.
I couldn't have done it without Heather or Aaron too. I mean, the three of us were just poring over every little bit, trying to make heads and tails of those birds.
But to your point, Michael, Paula, when we were taking down, Paula climbed up to go see how that was hung so that she would have that in her head. Thank goodness.
Crazy
So
birds.
can we ask Hacker to put together some renderings of what we've just described?
So I'll have to ask engineering. So again, they were concerned by the timeline. So if that's okay with folks, you know, we do have time before it opens, but again, that's going to make a mess. So
Well,
I
I don't think it would be a big undertaking for Hacker to do this because they have their renderings of the space and they should be able to drop this in if they have the general dimensions.
Okay. I'll ask Aaron today.
Okay, perfect. All right.
The other part to that, if I can just share before we move forward. So we had the design for this, right? So we paid KPFF Engineering to do this new design. They're not doing the install. And so there was hope that, I think it's Fine Artwork Services that Amanda's using for her install this week. There was hope at one point that maybe we could have them do the installation part, which includes attaching the cable and those anchor nut bolts, whatever they're called, to the piece while it's on the ground and then hanging it. I reached out to Eric from Artwork Services. They are, I think, interested in doing it. I sent them the drawings that we have. They could not do it this week regardless.
Okay.
But they could do it 2 weeks from now, they offered. So he's going to put together an estimate for that. And if they're not able to do that, I'm not sure who will have do that. That's beyond our facilities crews for sure. So yeah, we'll have to look at that.
What does this piece weigh? I can't remember.
I think that the engineering group that they estimated it at 100 pounds.
Okay.
I think each piece at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the largest piece is 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can we move on to the other large artworks?
Just gonna, Kelly, you had your hand up a while back. I don't know if you still had a question. Okay. So other artwork. So Hacker was still, and I've not heard back. I know they're busy. They're working on some dimensions for the set seal screen. They had given us a potential new location that was above the stairs coming up from the plaza level, from the first floor. That was kind of in an open area. It was a bit unclear. There are some bookcases nearby. I sent them dimensions of the set seal screen so that they could do those drawings, and I just haven't heard back yet from them. So I'll have to check out again or check in with her again shortly. The university, Willamette University, she's aware that we're going to be looking to move that piece back. It sounds like it might be later. I had initially thought end of June, early July. Things are getting pushed out to August, it sounds like, for a lot of the artwork move in. I reached out, I saw, I think there was 3 different local piano moving companies online when I Googled, 2 that had any information online. I left a voicemail with the first one and they never called me back. So I need to try again, or try the other moving company, or I might need to work with Lyle again this year. And I think they would be okay, but we would need to go to the site again and really take a look at this. The stairs coming out, it's gonna be a challenge to get that piece out of there. So that's in the works as well.
Okay. What
If at
about,
all- Oh, sorry, it's Chris. If at all possible, Heather, too, could we have the Setzel in before we start installing the other work? Because it's such an influential piece.
Yeah. I'll work towards that. So I'll reach out again to Hacker and keep calling these folks to see if I can get a moving company.
okay, what about the works that are up at X Gallery? Was there some earlier conversation about whether any of those works needed to be spruced up at all before they are reinstalled? And if so, what is the plan for that, as well as the timeline for moving everything back to Salem?
You want to talk about timeline, Heather? And then
I have been in communication with Jennifer of X Gallery, and she's been very patient on the timing. She understands the dates are changing a bit. So at present, she's got August 3rd and August 5th tentatively on their books as a date to return everything, and that includes pieces from both collections. And she did give a cost estimate to that would be $1,500 to return everything wrapped and place it in the library. Through conversations with Kate, we would likely split that cost with Kate. So that's, I think we're ready to go there whenever we give the go ahead and get confirmation of the date. And then Eileen, yeah, I know you were aware of some pieces needing maintenance.
Right, and also as far as X Gallery delivering, that doesn't work for either Paula or I as far as starting. And so what I was going to ask you is to have X Gallery deliver between the earlier week, the 21st to the 23rd, or maybe the 19th to the 23rd, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay, so Erin had, or somebody, Kate had shared that with me. I think there's still some questions on when we're going to have access to move the artwork in. So I'll need to verify. Erin's hoping that things are going to wait until August, it sounds like. So I'll work through that. It sounds like you would prefer July 21st through the 20th.
Well, yeah, it's rather critical. Paula will be gone through the week that they're assuming that we're going to be available. Nobody had talked with us about it, so but that's unfortunately the fact that we're not around.
So are you guys both back early August?
No, Paula will be gone the week between the 2nd and that week, which is the week that was assumed that we were going to be starting.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question about X Gallery moving the work? Did X Gallery take the work up to Portland?
Yes.
Okay. And how did they transport the work?
They had a large, if I recall, it was just a large, like a, they were able to fit everything in one day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just so that I understand, so if we are asked to maybe work on the artwork later in August, would that work for either of you?
We are also trying to coordinate with Silas Cook too. And the only thing that I know at this point, so it's a little difficult to be working with all the moving parts because there's so many different schedules and it's summer. But Silas has to take down the Chihuly at the end of August. So we don't want to push him into the end of August at that point. I don't want to talk with him in too much depth until we get our end of it solidified.
Sounds good.
So if it at all possible, it would all be going into the Anderson room downstairs. Apparently that's, Erin said that that would be an okay spot because it can be locked.
Okay.
So if it was to get in there before the 23rd, that week of, then we could get in there right then. Part of it was all set up for almost a full month previous, and that was all okay. But now, we just didn't know.
Well, that works. You know, the 13th of July is when Mr. Black is bringing the Trees of Life as well. And I asked Aaron about that yesterday. He said, well, why don't you check back with me a little closer? So, you know, whatever we need to do, that one, it might be a bit early. I'll have to figure that out. I think we have other alternate locations on the first floor of Civic if need be for temporary storage. So we'll just work through the moving target here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll all fall into place, but the X gallery is really important as far as their scheduling.
Right.
So
Okay.
looking at the last bullet under this agenda item, communications, I'm sure that we will use some of the same strategies that we're talking about for the Amanda Wojcik piece. So there could be a piece that CC Media does that, focuses on select works from the collection. Maybe, interviews Paula or Eileen or Rachel, and who give some short sound bites about things. Hacker could comment. I think that would be good for just the long-term documentation of the reinstall and, the big deal of the seismic upgrade and what have you. We've talked about something that could be interactive in the library, that would be iPad based that people could use to map the stuff. That would be kind of an interesting project for a graduate student in art history at some school, possibly U of O. They've done some interesting things at the Jordan Schnitzer Museum down there using iPads and their geography students. Whether the city wants to, whether we should think about something that would be focused on the city website, that's another option. All the other options, would be available. And I know that at our last meeting, we talked a little bit about the fact that folks in the community have reached out to library staff to inquire about specific works of art. I think focusing on the positive, the high points of the collection and the fact that not everything will return to the building, and just being frank about it, talking about a piece being relocated to the Gilbert House, for example, but being just positive about the fact that this is kind of a living and breathing thing and things will change over time. What about other thoughts on that, folks?
I think that the community comments were geared more towards the foundation collection than ours. I don't think that we've had any comments on ours.
And
Not that I know of yet. I think there will likely be some interest down the road, or there very well could be, in what pieces will go where and how the final decision was made. So I know through this process, there's not been any decisions yet on any of the paintings and such. And I think it's wonderful how this group has been working with the Library Foundation and the library as well on talking through a lot of these discussions. And so we'll just have everything documented very well, what these final pieces are in the library and what pieces get moved, possibly to other parts of City Hall or whatnot, just so that if there are questions down the road, it's easy to point to that. So.
yeah, and I think it's just an opportunity to, talk about the library really being a central gathering place, in the community, and just be very positive about the project overall. I think people are going to be thrilled. I was talking with a couple of my neighbors yesterday, and people are excited. Someone wanted to know, well, when do we get to go inside? And yeah, it's good. I think it's all good. I have a question, because the entrance to the library closest to the parking garage has now been reconfigured, and that arched glass hallway is gone. There was a freestanding animal, a deer maybe,
Mhm.
up above on the higher ground by that retaining wall.
Right,
Is that,
Dilbert Hodges. It's still there because we didn't move it.
yeah.
So it's still there.
So I guess my question is, maybe we want to, maybe we should think about looking at that as we all see what that side of the building looks like. I've only seen it from above when I went in earlier in the construction phase. So,
Yeah, it's pretty permanently installed, just so that you know, because we looked at it as a way of possibly moving it out of harm's way as they worked on it. And it's in concrete. It's permanent there for the time being anyway.
okay. All right. Shall we?
Okay,
Oh, go
before we
ahead.
go on, Chris, there are the questions that I have for the group too. Paula and Rachel and I got together over this last month to go over some of the issues that were coming up as far as placement. And a couple of the things that we were going to ask the group, we are looking to have the Fowlers refurbished by Silas Cook, if at all possible. But there are also a few paintings that need to be restretched and reframed. And it would come out of the SPAC monies because they're SPAC artwork. And so we need to have permission if we decide to do that. It's not an absolute, because nothing's going to be absolute until we get in there and actually see, like Paula pointed out, what we saw on paper as far as the bird's placement was concerned looked okay until she got in there and saw it and then realized it was too crowded. So that will happen again. So we're wondering if we can have permission to change. There's two paintings, and one of them is Andrew McDuffie Vincent's La Crosette Cans, and the other one is Cabanas's Historic Roman Scene. They have not been up in the library for some time because they're basically falling apart in the frame. There's those two. Also, while we were talking, Rachel suggested, and this was a great idea, I think, there are 8 paintings of birds by an artist by the name of Janasic. And we were suggesting that all those be reframed in the same frame and the same mats so that they could be used as a unit, or they could be used to split up and used to accent places around the library.
I would support the idea of doing the reframing and the restretching and simplifying the bird pieces with a consistent frame and mat. You know, I don't know what, are we talking $5,000?
Oh, it should be less than that. It should
Okay.
be less than that.
I mean, I think now would be the time to address those issues so that we complete this project and we've gotten everything to the same level. You know,
Yeah.
everything is presentation ready.
Mhm.
Those are not the only ones, but they are the ones that, you know, the bigger paintings, they can't really be used anywhere because they're falling apart. And so, you know, as far as maintenance of the collection, it's like you say, it's a good time to get that done.
Yeah, I'm supportive. How do others feel?
Sounds good to me.
To me.
Okay, that's everybody is agreeing then? Okay, that's great. We may not do it right away, but that's what we're thinking about doing. And so that helps a lot. Thank you.
Great. Anything else in the library, Eileen?
I can't think of it right now. There's so many different threads going on. It's a little hard to keep track, but I think we're pretty much good now.
I have
Okay.
a quick question. Do we have a date at all, Heather, for the actual like finished move in for the library part of things.
For library staff to move in furniture for things?
Yeah, for everything to be ready.
I don't. It seems like that just changed again. What I heard last from Kate, I think, via email was that they were, let's see, what did she say? I thought it was that early August is when the green light was now given for library staff, and which is why I had asked X Gallery as well for those early August.
Okay. And then they aren't anticipating opening to the public.
I've not heard any more on that. I think they're still hopeful. September was the last I heard
Okay.
about that.
Or they said the first week in September is what they were talking about. And as far as starting the move in, they were thinking it would be the first week in July, but they know it's going to be a couple of months process.
Hmm.
And so that hasn't changed as far as the idea that it's going to take a couple of months to do. It's just our other date that we were using was June 23rd, but Kate pushed that out to the first week in July.
Okay, so, but the very soonest that the public will be in the space is in the first week of September, is that?
September is what they're saying now, but you know, this has changed now. This is the third time, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Amanda, the other little
Right.
exhibition, a date that I can kind of give her, because I suspect that they're not going to want to put the work in there and just leave it in there without the public having access, you know, because then
Yes.
it's, yeah, so.
Yeah, especially,
that's good.
and the other thing too is how long the exhibition would be up. That
Mhm.
would be important.
Okay, thank you.
So Rachel, did the whole insurance thing, you said it got brought up? You had mentioned it, that it's on the table, that they need to come back with I don't know, can you speak to that a little bit?
I don't have anything to add other than that the city will be involved in some way. So I had asked Jonathan to share the standard loan agreement that they use, so I can send that to you, Heather, just as an example. And at some point, when we execute our own loan agreement with Elizabeth Leach Gallery and Amanda, the insurance will need to be probably addressed at that point.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. I just had another brainstorming thought on that. So if the library can't pay for the insurance, say it's just not in their budget, and the city, I guess, would SPAC, my question, would SPAC entertain the idea of covering the cost of the insurance to have that exhibition as, you know, as an option if need be?
It would probably depend on cost. I mean, let's say the show is up for 4 months, you know, and you get a policy for whatever, $500,000 for that period of time. I mean, someone will sell you that. I just don't know what it would cost. But I mean, I'd be.
Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah,
think
at my gallery, I mean, I covered about $1 million worth of liability for the year.
right.
It's not that much money. I'm just bringing it up just in case, if SPAC is in support of public art, which we are, it just seems like, you know, reframing things and restretching things, or covering the cost of an insurance piece that, you know, the library is, again, if it's not in their budget, it's not in their budget. I'm just bringing it up as an option, just thought that it might be something that we might be able to cover just to make it happen.
Right.
So
To me, that falls under administrative costs, Michael. So I'm all for that if that ends up being the way it would have to go.
yeah, okay.
I do think that if the library is serious about using that space for exhibitions of a certain caliber, that the insurance is going to be an issue.
That's
So-
what I was gonna say too. It seems like if we're gonna continue to use that space, we should talk about insurance on that space generally. How is the collection insured right now?
The city
There's-
is self-insured.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I need,
probably the foundation has a insurance. Do they, Heather?
said they did not during our
No.
meeting. So yeah, we do have coverage for our pieces in the public collection. I don't know what it means to potentially add, if it's even an option, additional temporary artworks. I know our pieces are considered covered during transport because that question came up. But I don't know beyond that what it looks like, and I need to reach out.
Yeah,
You know,
and for artists too, artists have insurance to cover their artwork in places where their artwork is not covered. And it's never been a very huge amount that I've had to pay, so.
I think it possibly might be, maybe we have the artist procure their own insurance and we compensate them for it. Because for us to go through and get the city to insure ongoing artwork, I don't know if that's how that would work out, but it's pretty simple for me to call my insurance agent and say, hey, I want to insure this stuff for 30 days at this location. I give them a value and then it's just covered. I've done that a number of times.
It's
Well, I
just
think
easier
that-
for the artists, it's easier just if they ask for, proof of insurance. That's typically the more serious artists are just, the formality is like, of course you're going to have insurance. The more community-based exhibitions and things, given my experience with the library, is they just ask the artist to waive it. And then yes, you could have your own private coverage, but they don't want to assume liability. And I'm assuming that, maybe there's just a better conversation we can have around planning programming going forward once the library gets open as to like the frequency of more serious exhibitions versus, because it's part of it's going to be the cadence of what I guess the resources can support in terms of, volunteer people hanging or just in general programming. And again, they do the Salem Reads. So that's just a good example of programming that goes on for months. So anyway, not to ramble on there, but I think there's some good conversation because it's going to be of value, that space, given there's not a lot of opportunity in Salem currently for artists to show work. So, maybe it just deserves a little bit more of a better meeting down the road.
And we did talk about that a little bit at the last library art meeting with Sarah, the director of the library, who has indicated through this whole process that they don't have the staffing to manage a changing exhibition program in that hallway. So, and then Kate from the foundation also does not have the bandwidth to do that. So we did talk a little bit about the idea of putting together some sort of collaborative committee to perhaps bring in some outside partners who could help program the space and also be realistic about how frequently it might change. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Those
that's great.
conversations need
even
to be
people like
happening.
Paula and Wu or Willamette or, Jonathan or any number of us would like to create opportunities for students to get real experience, either curating, hanging. Paula, I don't want to speak for you, but that's your sweet spot of just creating opportunity. So it's not even a good problem. It's a great opportunity to have to figure it out, because there's definitely kids out there that want that kind of experience. And
The points that you're bringing up are really, that's something that's been ongoing conversation now for about 6 months. And the last time that Kate and I were talking about it, we were both feeling that the pressure of this move-in stuff. And so we're kind of mentally pushing conversations about that out to September-ish. So there'll be a lot of opportunity for people to weigh in. And I think, Michael, what you're talking about is exactly what we're hoping to see happen. So yeah, so stay tuned and be part of it, because that's your bailiwick too.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the maintenance topics we've got on the agenda? Starting with the pastoral mural off of Court Street.
Sounds good. So I had brought up during our last meeting, unfortunately, the pastoral mural on Court there. It's the Christian Science Reading Room, I believe. So that was tagged a while back. Some lettering that said, I think it said West, and I can share pictures. Actually, let me find. I had thought that was one of those artworks not part of the public collection based on 2017 discussions when everyone was looking at the orphaned artworks. But I looked back and found that indeed it was, not only was it on the list of to be recommended to the collection, we do indeed in our files. It's one of the few pieces of documentation we have of some of these older pieces. There's an easement to the city of Salem from the property owner for that. It does state that it's a temporary easement, but with no dates attached to it for painting of that mural and for maintenance. So we did. So I reached out to, I wasn't sure the best approach. I reached out to Salem Sign, and they last week just completed. They had a painter that was able to touch that up. So let me see if I can find. It's not letting me minimize. The cost for that, by the way, was $650. So there's what it looked like a week ago. And I have other photos of the piece. This is by Jennifer Joyce, is the artist. I looked her up. She has quite a bit of information online. She has a website. She has done, which I thought was interesting, a lot of work for McMenamins here in Oregon. There was just a generic contact form. It was suggested that I should reach out to her, and I intend to do so. I have not yet. There's just been so many different fires going, but I'd like to reach out and get more information about this piece. Find the other.
Because Heather, she's still active as an artist, is what you're saying?
She is.
Yeah.
So she wasn't a contact to actually address the graffiti?
I did not reach out to her for that. I was told we should get that taken care of pretty quickly. So I just reached out to Salem Sign is what I did there. Here's another photo. Let me pull it up. Too many windows open. I'm sorry. So here's the after here in just a second. There's still a little bit that you can kind of see. Are you seeing that one? Can folks see this screen?
Yeah. Mhm.
Is that what it looks like?
That's a close-up of where that lettering was.
It's faded.
It looks faded. I know he was going to try to do some touch-up paint to hide that. So you can still kind of see it a little bit. The piece overall, I don't have good photos today. The piece overall is really not in the best of shape. When I looked at it, it's peeling. Of course, it's, you know, that was in 1987 or 89 that we painted it or had it painted. It's peeling all across the top. There's spots all over. So at some point, so what I'd asked them just to correct as best they could the tagging that we had on there. And I did ask again our graffiti team. He had mentioned when I first chatted with the guy, I thought he'd said there was some kind of reference maybe to guns or something. And I reached back out to clarify that, and he didn't respond yet. So I'm not sure what it meant, but at least we've got that removed for the most part. Again, you can still kind of see it, but that's gone. At some point, I think we'll have to have some discussions on what we want to do with that mural in general.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad the artist has been identified, because I think on the website the artist is unknown. So at least we know that. Thank you for taking care of the tagging so promptly, because I do think getting that off that wall quickly was important. And I think the longer term question for a later meeting is, we've got now a number of aging murals downtown, and what's the city's responsibility to maintaining them, and what's the source of funding for that? And yeah. So, all right, can we go on to the Peace Plaza mural?
Okay. I received, I heard from a gentleman named Brian Lewis, and I shared this with Chris and Eileen, I think earlier this month. Brian Lewis is his name. He'd reached out to me via email to ask just in general about the condition, and wanted to see some photos of the Peace Plaza mural with Linus Pauling, is what he'd said was image on it. So I was able to get in there. It's in that construction, or it's fenced off right now, but I was able to get in and get some photos and send to him. He let me know that he was appointed to a selection committee for the selection of that piece by Mayor Gertenrich at the time. So I don't have an exact date. Mr. Lewis has also been in conversations with the artist, and they were interested in learning maybe what the condition was, which was apparent from the pictures. It looks kind of similar to the mural downtown. There's you can see seams in the piece of the mural where there's individual boards, I guess, that were placed up there. And it's along those seams where the paint is peeling away quite a bit, as well as at installation points where there was bolts or whatnot into the wall itself. It's looking a bit rough as well. And so I had a phone conversation with Mr. Lewis, the artist. Let me find his name. He shared artist information was Peggy O'Neill and her partner Larry Watson of Wow Arts and Exhibits, and they sent a little bit of information about the two artists. So we did a quick phone call just to see if there was interest from the commission. I thought maybe there was, and at least learning more. And then I know that as we move towards opening up the library, there's been talks of just cleaning up that plaza area in general. So we had a quick conversation. They would like to, if we're indeed interested, come up and look at the piece. We still obviously need to get some more background information about it. They are in North Bend, but they would like to see the piece in person if we're interested, to get a better idea of what the maintenance might be needed. And they did give a cost for driving up and spending an hour and a half to do that of $439. So I guess just to start the conversation, that's where we're at with that. And I can share slowly here a picture if folks remember that mural. I think Linus Pauling might be the gentleman, if you're seeing this, right on the corner as you turn around to the main face there on the edge. Got other photos. These are all piecemeal, so it takes me a minute. Zoom in on this. You can see the seam lines, I think, on this image. And again, that's where most of the wear and tear is. So it's an older piece. I looked back, Mayor Gertenrich was mayor for Salem, 1994 to 96. So I presume it was during those years that they had this piece commissioned.
Now, and again, murals, the shelf life of a mural is usually about 20 years.
Yeah. I asked Heather to put this on the agenda today so that we could talk about it as a group. I am still unclear about whether there was some kind of a competition that selected this group or how it actually came to be. Because the artists they're mostly people who painted museum dioramas. If you go to their website, there are no dates for when they completed the work. So it was hard for me to tell where this piece fell in their body of work, but some of it looks like it looks like they were active a while back. I also just suggested in an email to Heather that as we look at the future of this particular piece, that given all of the conversation about social justice and equity and inclusion, that maybe we think about what a 21st century piece mural looks like at the Salem Civic Center. But again, I'm super curious about how this came to be. A couple of my neighbors are longtime peace activists in Salem, and I happened to speak to them yesterday. They said that one of them chaired the Salem Peace Plaza nonprofit group. This mural was not part of the development of the rest of the Peace Plaza. The panels on the wall, the collection of quotes related to peace messages, and then the sculpture. So it was interesting to hear that. But she did say that many of the people involved in those early Peace Plaza days have just passed on because it's been quite a while. They didn't have any information about the mural. Anyway, so I guess the question is, do we want to bring them up for $400 to take a look at the piece? You know, they're probably not the only ones who could conserve this. There are professional conservators. But what do people think about this? How do you want to proceed?
I had a question about, is there photography of quality of the finish, of closer to when it was originally painted? Is there better reference to when it was in better shape?
I have not seen any photographs of the piece when it was recently installed, but have you, Heather?
Not when it was recently installed. There's a quick summary that Larry shared with a couple of early images. It looks like of the piece. Let me just see.
And they have some on their website.
And it's not going to let me share. I have too many things open.
So I just had some commentary why I was kind of asking that.
Yeah. Here's the images they provided, which
This
are
is what it looked like when it was brand new.
This is the summary they provided, tear sheets, or just tear sheets. Apparently they have been able to find some documentation.
So just to share my thought on any of these, where the decisions would be made to either refurbish or let the easement run out and then potentially put up something new in its place. But the thought there would be to commemorate, if you had good reference and higher quality of what the mural looked like before it started to fall apart, you could actually, I don't know, it's a value, I guess, for Salem's history and art that beyond putting it on a website. It makes me think of what's going on with the fundraising around the, why can't I think of the theater?
Elsinore.
Yeah, what's going on with the Elsinore, commemorating, I'm not saying it's on coffee mugs, but I think you get where I'm kind of going. It's like, yeah, it's sad to think that we wouldn't pay the money to have it refurbished, but we all know we don't have all the funds that we would like. Sometimes a tough choice, but I'm just saying that maybe that there is outlet for, I don't know, some sort of sponsored greeting card type blank cards that could be fundraising for something. I don't know. It makes me think of, an SAA, like they sell things, things that are meaningful to Salem. It might be a bad idea coming from SPAC, but anyway, rather than just seeing it go away, that there could be some homage to some of these pieces if we had to make a choice against funding a refurbishment.
I think that's a good point, Michael.
And I have a question. When you think about, as we've looked at the Echo Earth Ball and the Peace Mosaic, preserving a mural that was painted on wood in an outdoor setting seems like rolling a giant boulder up a hill and then having it roll back down and crushing you again. I mean, it seems like the structure of this could be somewhat flawed in terms of the fact that it's painted on panels and it's now, even if it was in 94, I mean, this thing is 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of why I brought up just the contrary to not even spending the money having anyone come up. I mean, wood as a substrate on an outdoor piece is just problematic.
Right.
And my apologies, I think it was textured concrete.
It was what? What was that, Heather?
Sorry, it was the textured concrete. Concrete was the surface for the mural.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Seems to me like it'd be a good opportunity to have a new mural commissioned.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yep.
Yeah. It's like, well, what does peace look like now? There's issues to be addressed. And
then you can point to the history of, what was there, and the history of Peace Plaza is a lot more meaningful back, when it was created, and more active than it is now. But with the remodel of the new library, it just seems like there's new energy, new life being brought to this area of town and the facilities.
I have another question. Since a couple of us may be within the construction fence tomorrow, would it be possible to just walk by it visually and see for ourselves what it looks like? I know I'd be in, Kelly, if you're there, going to take some pictures. Heather, if you're there, if I'm over there, we could just scope it out.
Take some close-ups, would you, if
Yeah,
you do?
I would be happy to do that.
I forgot it was even there. I haven't seen that in years.
Right. Well, the other thing that actually is probably a plus is that the city took out some diseased trees, and so the space is now more open. There had been quite an overhang over that piece, but now, and I think the plan is that there will be some new trees planted, but I think it'd be good if a couple of us could just go over there and eyeball it.
Short of bringing them up to look at the condition and that at this point, Heather, would it be possible to have them write a little bit about the subject matter of the mural? Because the fact that one of the figures is Linus Pauling, it piques my interest as to obviously that there was a story with this mural. And I'd like to know a little bit more about that before we discuss whitewashing it and starting fresh again.
I did a quick search at the Statesman Journal archives, and looks like a lengthy article about it from September of 1994 and another one in October.
Can you share that link?
Yeah, I'll send it.
Perfect. That's good. I
didn't read it. I just saw that it was there. So
well, that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm
So
not.
1994 was the date then.
Mhm. So I'll send it around so we can
Great.
all read it.
That's good.
Can we hold off for today, Heather, on making a decision until a couple of us have a chance to look at it?
That
And
sounds
then,
good.
and then let's see how much information we can find online about the Eileen's question.
And I can ask them again. I think Mr. Lewis typed up that summary that I shared, or maybe him or Larry, but I can ask for some additional stuff. They seem interested in chatting about it, so.
Yeah,
Great.
for me, I would like to know specific content because obviously there was a lot of thought given to what they put up there. And so, and we don't have anything about that.
Right. The only other thing I was going to add real quick, and there's nothing final yet. I just wanted to share. Apparently, there's been some discussions about there was some cost savings with the library work, and there was some discussion about potentially using some of the savings to repair that fountain.
Oh, wow.
The artist.
That'd be great.
Hanson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be incredible, because my understanding is that it leaks,
Yeah.
and I would be I would personally be interested in a conversation with Mr. Hanson about whether those concrete things that jut up out of the courtyard have to be there forever.
Yeah, I wonder if they weren't put there to keep skateboarders from using the curve.
I don't know, but to me, they're exposed aggregate. They appear dangerous to me, but
Yeah. Yeah.
and I know Aaron Kimsey in a much earlier conversation said that the city they are looking for ways to activate that plaza. You know, whether it's lunchtime concerts, special events, a farmer's market, whatever, to bring that to life. So that's very encouraging, Heather.
Well, yeah, fingers crossed. I'll let folks know when I hear more. There are no decisions yet, but they're looking at it, so.
That's great. That's great. All right, are we ready to move on to the Wayne Taysom bronze panels?
Okay, so I did finally ask Kimberly, our historian, Kimberly Fitzgerald, about the nomination for City Hall to be on the historic register. What she shared was that an individual and a group, Elizabeth Potter and Dokomomo, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, a group had reached out to SHPO regarding listing of the building, but she still had not seen any information. So it sounds like at present, it's still just considered a potential listing. And so as such, it's still held to certain requirements. And so actually for the library renovation, what I learned is that the city signed an MOA with SHPO to do an ILS, she called it, which is an interpretive level survey, I guess, and to do actually some on-site interpretation of the history at the library. And so Kimberly has an intern coming online shortly, it sounded like, to assist with that process.
I did reach out to Elizabeth Walton Potter, who is a pretty well-known historic preservationist. And she also had lived in Salem in 1972 at the time of the Civic Center development. She referred me to, and I told her that I was trying to get the background on the Wayne Taysom panels. She referred me to a program, a fairly extensive program that was developed for the dedication of the Civic Center. She said she didn't have one in her personal files, so I need to reach out to Sarah Strahl. There is likely one at the library, but I know that the hard copy stuff, a lot of the hard copy historical materials at the library have just been not accessible to the public during the seismic work. She also referred me to the writings of another woman. I think her name is Jorlis Schick or Schlick. And she did a lot of writing for things like the Secretary of State's office. I haven't had time to run that down. I also reached out to Roger Hull. He is checking to see whether he has some of this old art program stuff. He may. And I talked to Nancy Lindberg. She does not have any of it. But it seems like we may be able to backtrack things. I also talked to Ross Sutherland, who's now the head of the Bush House Museum, because he goes way back around these topics. He suggested interviewing Jerry Frank, who is still alive and was active in this stuff. So, and then Roger and Jonathan Bucci have been talking. There are 5 aluminum panels in the collection of the Hallie Ford. Jonathan said he has never actually seen the doors, so he's very curious to see any photographs that we have. Didn't you take some photos, Kelly?
Yes, I did. Heather has them, I believe.
They would love to see those photos. And that's really all I know right now. I have a couple of other leads in Corvallis to follow up on, but it's kind of interesting. I'm super curious about how he landed the project. The Willamette Heritage Center sent me the index of their holdings of the materials from the Settecase Architects. And so I have the numbers of the files to look at, but they have not let me know when I can come over and look at anything in hard copy. I think I think we can take our time to figure out what's next. The doors are safe, the panels are safe. We have plenty to do in the next 2 months. And the fact that Kimberly and Shippo know that we know that the material has to be preserved, I think we're okay.
Just to add, there is a file that's at the library. It's in the vertical files of the reference area. That's all about the Civic Center.
Mhm.
I've looked at it, and that program is in there.
Great.
Whether we'll be able to access it right now is another question.
Yeah.
I guess another thing I'd just like to add, this is just a general observation about research and documentation of the artwork. We really need to get a collections database going, and I know that right now the works are cataloged in, well, but I use that term really loosely, cataloged in the city database, but I think it's worth transferring all of the artwork into an art specific collections database and cataloging the work, because all of these little bits and pieces are getting lost in the shuffle, and we're revisiting things over and over again.
Yep.
That could be easily documented and should be within a collections database. And that includes numbering the objects properly, and locations and movement conditions. Eileen and Paula did a great deal of work on condition assessments when the work was being moved out of the library. And so to be able to put that information into a collections database is really important. And then all the different photographs that we have of things, the documentation from the engineers on the installation of this birds piece, all of that stuff needs to be preserved somewhere, because otherwise, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, somebody else is going to be doing the same things we are doing, which is piecing together all of this from emails and reinventing the wheel over and over again. So I just highly suggest that we do that.
Thanks for bringing that up very much, that Rachel, because I was going to bring that up under comments later. because that has been on my mind since working on these labels, how spare our information is about all the artwork. But to add to that a little bit, also our city website needs to be changed drastically. There are, everybody needs to know that there's a number of errors on the site, and they've been there for all this time, and none of us have known it. As in names of artists misspelled, artwork mislabeled, and crucial things. And there's no information really about the artworks or artists on the site, and it would be nice to see that as a shift, because now we do have a little bit of information about these things. So, and there is a percentage of the work that's currently listed on the site that is no longer in the foundation collection. So those all should come off too. And that's about a dozen works.
And if we have a collections database, most of them, a lot of them have online interfaces that can just be seamlessly integrated into your website. And so any changes that are made in the back end of the collections database automatically are made in the web interface, and you can control which fields are shown or not shown, and people can search it and sort and do all kinds of things. So then we're not in that position of double entering information, and that's when mistakes often occur.
Thank you for bringing that up. I just share, we're looking at options for a new website as a whole for the city. The one that we have is not easy to do maintenance of. And so now is actually a good time for me to ask other staff about something like you said that could integrate easily with the new approach. So I'll reach out and start that conversation.
I would just reinforce the need for a collection management database, because as I've been just circling around, whether it's a mural, whether it's something that's damaged, whether it's the Taysom doors, if we could just build a base of information, it would save us all time in the future, and it would just be it would be time well spent. I also think, depending on the cost, we could probably apply for a small grant, even from the Marion Cultural Development Corporation, the local arm of the Oregon Cultural Trust, and get the software and possibly find some money for someone to actually start the work.
Yeah, the software is probably around $2,000, I would imagine. And then if you wanted to have the online integration, you have to pay a license annually for that. So, that's an annual fee that is probably less than $1,000. Right.
I mean, I think that now, if you think about the collection being 50 years old, it's time to just make the records more robust, in the interest of having better information in the long term.
Well, and also to have the records accurate.
Right.
Because one of the things that I found out was that we don't even know really whether some artwork is actually accessioned into the collection. We don't have any dates for for a good portion of the collection as far as accessioning. And there's two pieces in the library currently that don't seem to have gone through SPAC at all, but were actually purchased by the city and are part of the collection because they've been purchased by the city. So there's a lot there, and I think it's time and should perhaps be a priority for us to clean all this up and put it, like Rachel's suggesting, put it all in one place.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that is a disconnect right now is that the appraisal that was done by Wendy Wells Jackson does not connect with any of the records,
Yes.
such as they are. So, like the Hanson or the Tom McCall sculpture has a value of $250,000 in terms of a replacement value. And that doesn't appear in any database that's connected to, okay, here's the artist, here's the work, here are the dimensions, here's how it was acquired. So I think merging all of that information into one system that can be accessed and preserved would be, I agree, a priority. All right, I'm mindful of the time. Let's move on to the Echo Earth Ball. I suggested that this just be put on the agenda, as a recurring item. I'm mindful as I drive by Riverfront Park and I look over and see the Rotary Amphitheater going up, and I hear the news about the new construction that CB2, has with a new building going in on the corner. The fact that the amphitheater is going to open in a month and there'll be lots of interest in the park and what have you, especially seasonally, that we're just sort of high centered on the Echo Earth Ball. Mary Heinzman gave Eileen all of their records. I'm slowly sifting through it. I haven't had a lot of time lately, but it's, in terms of a development or a fundraising project, this is a big one. And personally, I think the city will need to put some money on the table in order for any foundation request can be made. And I don't see this as a GoFundMe. The budget's too high.
How much do you think the city needs to put in?
Well, I think, and this is me speaking as an individual, if the city wants to add a third of the project costs, we're looking at a $400,000 plus project. The real estimate from ARG is a lot less. So if the city could put, I don't know, $100,000. I appreciate the fact that there are pressing issues facing the city, such as the homeless issue, cleaning up the parks, reinvigorating downtown, which has a lot of big empty buildings now. I get all that, but we're going to open a big public partnership with this amphitheater, and we've got a sign next to a giant earth ball that says Salem Arts Commission is working on this.
As I recall, a large portion of the price tag was city fees and basically overseeing the project. And so it seems to me if we could get them to donate that aspect of the cost, that would get us a lot farther down the road.
That would be a good start. I agree. I don't expect us, I don't have any answers today. I just don't want us to lose sight of the fact that winter will be here. It will rain again someday. And we're just, in the meantime, there's the ball. So.
It'd be nice to get something going. I agree.
Yeah.
Another part of my concern on dovetailing on that is that there are several people who have passed away who did have knowledge of some of the fundraising that was done previously. And while Mary is a very good source still, I hate to say it, but it is a concern that the knowledge of this stuff will get lost.
I agree. I think a lot of people chipped in little bits of money, like they adopted a walrus or the country of Scotland for, $150, $250. That's really how a lot of the money was raised. So that's a big on the ground fundraising plan that, you know, usually you have someone operating something like that, as well as looking for some major
Mhm.
gifts. I do think, and I have the paperwork and I have the background from Mary, but I haven't drafted one of those historic sites things. There's a template that that local governments use and the state uses to talk about the significance of a historic site. But there could be some funding from Oregon Heritage or through SHPO if people can decide that this is an important landmark, you know, of some type. I think we ought to keep looking at that. I haven't looked at the
Mhm.
heritage
I mean,
grants are
maybe we
only made
can,
every once a biennium and they're not huge, but it, you know, might get us somewhere.
Could we have a more robust discussion on this, perhaps even next month or
Yeah,
September, so that, because there are so many different aspects of this that need to be kind of delved into a little bit more deeply. Because I don't see SPAC as having the ability to do oversee a fundraiser of this size.
no, there's too much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know, I mean, to raise $250,000, that's what the real cash cost would be. That's one thing. Then to raise another 100 plus or more, that's another thing. But, you know, I mean, development is a science. So there are steps that need to be taken and you know, that's still out there to be done.
Mhm.
But yes, I think next month or August, either way. But it will rain again and more stuff will happen.
So on a related adjacent note, just a quick question. Do we have any information, Heather, about the status of the expansion at the carousel and what might be happening with the Peace mural?
Mosaic.
Sorry, yeah, mosaic.
No, that I've heard, they just recently reopened, right? And what I'd seen in writing was the expansion was to be determined yet. So I think they were still going to reinitiate fundraising for that.
Mhm.
The Friends of the Salem Peace Mosaic they've started an Instagram account. They seem to be suggesting that support is needed to make sure that the piece is reinstalled. I can't tell if that's just saber rattling or whether there is maybe the fundraising or the campaign for the carousel is not going quickly. I don't know. I'm watching it, but you know, it would be.
Yeah, I can't recall if did they ever give us a final budget or breakdown of what the cost was to move it and all of that?
I don't know.
I
but
don't
they
remember
want money
seeing
from
any.
the city.
Mhm.
Yeah, they
They-
did.
they
I
would
don't remember
want-
seeing any cost.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't recall any costs. There was a number of numbers that were thrown around at the time to remove that from the Y. I don't remember seeing anything cost-wise for the reinstall.
But there is an appropriation from the legislature to 100. Didn't they get 100,000?
I think you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't believe
I was
money.
just wondering if there's some sort of accounting that's happening and tracking of their budget and the use of those funds.
I don't know. It would be good to find out. And the piece is stored in a city facility, right? Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we can probably figure out where the campaign is for the carousel expansion. I can look around for some information. All right.
I was just wondering if maybe it was affected by current events and whether there have been any changes, and if so, what the impact is on where that piece will be moved to.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I know the Rotary project is probably the most successful in terms of fundraising. I think the Y is working pretty quietly on their campaign. The Center for Health and Safety site is filled with weeds, and there's a concrete fence or a chain link fence around it. That seems pretty slow. I haven't heard about the carousel. And the hospital's raising money for its wing. So there's competition for money, let's put it that way.
And the Elsinore is trying to raise money too.
Yeah.
And they were holding off while the Rotary was starting.
Well, okay. Anything else in terms of comments from commissioners? All right, not hearing any. Anything else for the good of the order? Sounds like we are finished. Thank you all. And I'm excited to see the Dale Chihuly show at the Hallie Ford. Oh, one last thing. I'm going to circulate an email. I had a message, and so did Michael, from Kimberly Contreras, Richard Thompson's wife. They are organizing some memorial events for Richard the weekend of the 26th. So, and his obituary ran in the News Register in McMinnville. So I can forward those links following our meeting. All right, it looks
Okay,
like we're adjourned at 11:25.
Thank
Yay.
you.
Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.